GoPro is on. Ow. Hello, welcome to the video. I'm going through my Inktober 2025 sketches in this little sketchbook here. Sea White of Brighton, A6, which is about 5 inches by 7, thereabouts. Just quickly go over the tools that I used. I used a pencil just to get initial sketches. And then for the bulk of these sketches, I used Pro Markers, Pro Marker brush, or just normal Pro Markers, of the neutral tones, specifically the cool grey side, so cool grey 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, with a bit of black as well for extra contrast. This is the start pack that I used, and I ended up needing to get a second additional pack because of how much ink I used. Once that was done, I would use these pens, which are from, apparently these are from Mitsubishi. They are Uni Pen Fine Line, and the sizes I used were 0.05s mainly, 0.1, and then the odd 0.3. These are the main ones I used. And then for highlights, I then used Sakura Jelly Roll White pens of 0.5, 0.8 and 1mm thickness, depending on what kind of highlight effect I wanted. And with that said, let's go through the prompts. So the first one was mustache, so that's this one here. So I went for a Dali style mustache, very long, thin strands, supported by 2 crutches, and then I've just done my Wanderer smile figure, the jawbone and then the lips that then form into the teeth. So that was this one. It was a nice start, relatively small in size, especially for the pens because they bleed out a fair bit. So this was an interesting reminder of how they behaved. Next one was weave, and I went unconventional because it's actually this part that's vaguely weave-like. So I've got the large intestines going to the small intestines, and then they're weaving in and out. So that'll be the end where it would have been attached to the stomach, feeding all the way back down. And yeah, I think this was relatively successful. So I used negative space for the like brightest spots as best I could. I didn't continue this going forwards, to my knowledge. Pens were bleeding into each other too much, so I just gave up with that idea. It definitely works well in most cases. This one mostly works, I think. All of these I was posting on YouTube as shorts, and this one surprisingly got 1.4k viewers just unexpectedly, which was the biggest I've ever had, and still is. But that was a nice surprise. So yeah, oh, cat screaming. Next was crown. So this is from, I think it's called the Lost King film. So this is Harry Lloyd as King Richard III with his crowned helm before he goes to the Battle of Bosworth. I didn't match the face. It's a bit more chunky on the chin, but otherwise I think the helmet looks okay for as simple as it is. Little slight light shading here with the lines. Chainmail I really struggle with, but that's not really the main focus. The main focus is the face, and I think to an extent that does work. But yeah, just the chin really deforms the look of the original actor. Next one was murky. I think this is my least favourite sketch because the prompt didn't really inspire much for me. I was struggling for ages, and then I got panicked. I needed to get something done, so I just did self-portrait, and the idea was a murky mind because I couldn't think of a good idea. Plus, I don't know why, I keep looking at this part of the mouth and it looks like I'm smirking even though I'm not. I did something here, I don't know what it is, but it always draws my eye. But anyway, onwards to deer. It's a bit more of a traditional deer resting down. The neck was a bit of a difficult patch, trying to get the tones correct and try and build depth. I don't think I was successful. This looks relatively flat to me. Like this part down here, a bit of depth, but yeah, here it looks too flat in my opinion. Then go to pierce. So I've gone a bit weird. So I've converted an eye into a kind of makeshift dartboard. So you've got your 3 darts piercing into the flesh and the eyeball. And I really like this one. I think this did really well in my opinion, especially the darker tones of the upper eyelid, or where your top of your eye socket would be. This is a recurring problem I keep going across, where as I'm inking, I'd get the ink from the pro markers on my fingers, one of these somewhere, and as I'm holding the page to do the rest, I would leave an imprint. And in most cases it's not too bad, but in other places it really distracts from the main piece, this being one of them. Starfish, I wasn't particularly thrilled with this because I was trying to be smart, but I couldn't really get anything else done. So best thing I could do was make the jaw clam as the starfish encloses around it with its little feeders, start to attach and try and digest it as best it can. Reckless, I think this is my favourite one. So the idea was, what would be reckless holding a stick of dynamite? Hence this creature was created. So it's just lit the spark and it's curious. It wants to know what's going to happen when this spark stops. And that, I think, is the most successful part as well, because you've got all the highlights of the sparks coming out, and then it's lit predominantly around the light source, as you would expect. So you've got nice darks in the palm down here where the light would be blocked by the fingers and the dynamite stick. And yeah, this comes back later in a version which was accidental. But yeah, I think this is my favourite. We're now on to heavy. My idea was that the voice in your head that whispers things to you that can get quite heavy, certainly in terms of doubting yourself, my ability. So there was a bit of confidence shaking at this point. So we've got my ear with that voice manifested as a set of lips, whispering, causing a build-up of self-doubt. So we've got the S-E-L-F here, D-O-U-B is here, and then T. Self-doubt weighing heavy upon the head, the ear, and that was that. It's not really legible. That's an issue on my part, but as an attempt of kind of bubble, fleshy letters, it's not too bad. And I think the depth of the ear isn't too bad, though some of my hatching skills here could have done a bit better, but I was under usually a time restraint for most of these. This is now sweep. So most of these I try and avoid the obvious. So I took it to a different step with this, where the tree has had all of its leaves drop onto the ground, and now the remaining leaves attached to its branches is sweeping away, clearing space around the main trunk. So that's what's going on here. Trying to make leaves in a bundle, really hard. I don't think I did it successfully. It kind of looks like a giant blob of fluff. It's just pushing around. So yeah, not too successful overall. But I think again the depth of the tree does help bring it forward a bit. And then a fun little sting. So most people would have done like a bee sting, stinging someone. In this case, I've done a weird wasp, ironically, stinging itself in the throat, giving it a taste of its own medicine. Wasps are little buggers, they'll sting you just for the hell of it. So I wanted to imagine how its reaction would be if it got stung itself. This would have been one of the fingerprints that I disguised as the drop of venom, I guess, dripping down its body. This is ragged. In terms of the prompt name relative to the sketch, I could have done this more raggedy. So the idea was like a ragged skin, like he's been in an accident, gonna be chewed up. That ended up becoming this anatomical, muscular figure holding their ragged skin that they've ripped off, now staring down at the face of themselves. You see where it's ripped off here, and it would have been all of this part that's come off, now lifting up into view. The cat is not happy right now, it wants to get in here. Body-wise, I think it's okay. However, I feel like this part of the arm is much chunkier than it should be. It looks very blocky. It needed to be tightened up a little bit more, and it would have looked a bit more natural. Otherwise, it does look okay. Cat, he's a bad kitty. On to drink. So I did this character, I think he's called Visibold Form from Baldur's Gate 3, and he's a giant grotesque creature with 4 legs and a giant drink barrel that he hits and spews a new drink for himself. He's enlarged, so he's got a ripped belly just about held on, and he's kind of stitched together partially on the skin. That was this one. Not too bad, though I think I could have populated a bit more of the back shelf here, but again, time limitations. But the simple highlights do, for me, work to create the depth and shape of the bottles. Now we're on to trunk. This was a little fun play on the word. So we've got an elephant's trunk morphing into a tree trunk. So we've got the rings here into the roots. Again, not too bad appearance-wise. It's a bit messy in places, but otherwise not too bad. And again, the fingerprint. The cursed fingerprint. Now to ragged. The actual ragged, I just realised the other one was meant to be shredded. This was shredded, not ragged. I went for a ragged landscape, so hard, jagged rocks in this arch, which to an extent resembles a jawbone, sharp teeth here. This is meant to kind of resemble an eye, and I didn't want to just leave it as just the arch, so I added a little bit of a landscape, foreground, midground, and background to an extent, just to help bring it together a bit more, but I didn't want to extend it too far this way. But yeah, this is not one of my more successful ones. Now to Blunder. This is kind of the theme of one-eyed creatures in these sketches. The idea behind this one was the blunder is this poor creature that only has a leg and its eyes has unfortunately blundered itself into a bear trap style device that is now stuck inside. It's blundered into this mess and it will not be able to get itself out easily. So that was kind of the gag on this one. Semi-successful. Definitely like the darker shading and tones on this one. Got kind of a top light coming down. Ornate. This one nearly broke me in a way. So this, for anyone who doesn't know, is the Sutton Hoo helm, or the recreation of it, which is a Anglo-Saxon helmet found in the Sutton Hoo burial ship mound. There's a film, The Dig, kind of looks on the original site of this. The parts that we do have are very intricate, ornate. When you look at it, it's such a beautiful helm, so I wanted to recreate it, not realising how ornate certainly this lower faceplate here was. Like, there's so many interweaving knots, or whatever that style is, which was very difficult to try and replicate, especially with my time constraints, so I just ended up doing little swiggles to imply that detail. But I did focus on the two figures that repeat across the helmet, where their warriors clashing with their swords, and then they've got two sets of spears ready to throw afterwards. And the nasal plate here is a bird with its wings, and then these are jeweled, like red jewels, just underneath the eyebrows, which then goes to a serpent, I believe. It's a very cool helmet. I'll definitely check it out if you haven't seen it in person or photos. Very cool helmet. But yeah, this one nearly broke me trying to get those details down. On to deal. So I've got a contract being offered to you, the viewer, with a pen extending out for you to sign. This could be a simple basic contract, or maybe it's something a bit more sinister. Who knows? I like how it kind of flows together. So you've got the hand gripping the top, crumples the paper itself, and then the hand feeding out from the actual paper itself, as if the contract itself is offering you to sign it. But yeah, not too bad. I think this lower hand is more successful than the top. These ones look a bit more thick and sausage-like, whereas these, to me, give certainly the illusion of kind of a depth of offering out. Arctic was a bit more simple, because I was thinking, what could I do that's unique? There's Arctic animals, but then I'd have to focus on white furs, which is going to be pretty difficult. So I ended up doing iceberg style features with little icebergs floating by around it. I think this isn't too bad. I didn't go too dark to try and emulate the white ice and the Arctic feel, but still give it some shadows from where the direct light is coming from. And then I've got white highlights in the water, try and give them the illusion of subtle waves flowing through. Then we've got rivals. Pretty simple. I've done two warriors mid-battle. Based on the helmets, you could maybe argue one's Viking or Anglo-Saxon, and then this be a bit closer to Norman, especially from the shield design. They're just exchanging in a little battle. Again, chainmail, very difficult to emulate, so I've just gone for basic lines with subtle highlights to try and give the illusion of interlocking chains. And we're on to blast. So now we know what happens if you hold a stick of dynamite for too long. This creature has found out. Don't know if you'll be able to see this, but you can see the outline of the eye and some of the fingers and the actual dynamite stick just within the blast, and then it's exploding out. Got loads of sharp lines coming out, and then depth of the actual exploding cloud that's rapidly engulfing this creature. It's not too bad. It's pretty successful, and it was fun accidental prompt based on a previous one that just made sense. This is his button. I didn't want to just do a button, and a lot of people were going to do the Coraline button stitched eye effect, so I just did a version of that, emulating the dartboard from the piercing or the pierce sketch prompt earlier. So I've again gone for an eye. This time the main eyeball part is now the button, which then been stabbed with a couple of needles ready to be sewn in to make the Coraline effect. It's a bit small. I could have maybe increased its size a little bit. I think that's a slight issue with me during these sketches, as some of them do feel a bit too small relative to the paper size, but there you go, time limitations and panic trying to get these all done most likely had an effect. This is the Serenity Firefly class model from the series Firefly in space, as it's kick-started its engine and it's flying off into deep space. So any Firefly fans out there you go. Here's the Serenity. somewhat rendered. Onto Rowdy. Again, this is one of those ones that I didn't feel much connection to, so the best thing I could think of was another character that's maybe had a bit too much to drink. He's got that classic tie around your head vibe, around the jawbones, coming down. He's a bit of a drinker, he's got a bit of a beer belly, and he's just belting away into a mic, being a bit of a rowdy fella. And again, this one could have been a bit bigger. Feels a bit squashed in this lower corner. Puzzling is puzzling in itself. I wanted to avoid the traditional puzzle effect that everyone was doing, so I went more of an abstract approach by replicating a dream that I had semi-recently, which, as we know, dreams can be quite puzzling things. So the idea was the sleeping eye opening up and letting part of the dream flow out, which in this case is an eel with chips. Apparently in the dream I was in a chip shop and I was ordering eel and chips because Henry II ordered it, or Henry VIII, one of the Henrys. Apparently it was his favourite meal, something daft like that. Beforehand there was a scene at a friend's house years ago where a fox was sitting around under a table. In this case I flipped it, so fox is now on the table and its tail connects to the table legs and helps stabilize it, so it doesn't look like it's just entirely floating on its own. It is grounded to an extent, even though it is balanced on an eel's head on a chip. Yeah, quite puzzling. Maybe not the most effective approach to the prompt, but yeah, that's how it is. These next two are switched because I didn't realise I had done the wrong one, so there's a preview of the one after the actual one. So next in sequence would be onion. Again, one-eyed creature, which is cutting an onion. I think most of us have cut an onion, and then that sting immediately hits your eye and just burns like hell. That's what this scene is depicting. The creature has cut the onion, the fumes have come up, and it's gone and licked the eyeball. It's giving it a sting as it's cut away at this little section here. Again, it's kind of comical approach to the prompt. Very veiny hand. That was my hand as reference. Don't think I did it too well. This looks very deep veined. But otherwise, the tones look pretty good. I'm quite happy with it overall. Maybe I would have refined the hand a bit more. And then goes to Inferno. I've got a muscular face, as if it's been burnt, the skin's singed away, and then you've got the bright flames going through, trying to give the effect of illuminated light with a dark background going into lighter against the flame edges. Kind of successful. Like, I don't know if the flames look like flames for the most part, but I think you get the feel that they're probably not in a good place, especially if they look a bit more sunken in with the features and you can see the bare muscles coming through. And I don't think they've got the happiest expression as well, so that helps feed into the narrative of they're in an inferno. So we're then on to Skeletal. This is from a card of a game called Cadaver. I pretty much copied a skeletal figure from the card game, changed the environment because they're in a shallow grave, whereas in this case I've done it into a coffin, and then it's partly broken at the bottom on the more deteriorated side of the corpse, which helps give some contrast to the skeletal bones of the ribcage and spine there. I think this one is pretty successful. I like how it looks aesthetically, especially with the coffin help framing them inside, but then it's not quite central, it is shifted to the side slightly, so a bit of a compositional fault on my part. Could have at least straightened it out or got these lines to come in a bit more of a deeper angle, but otherwise not too bad, not too bad. Then we're on to a lesson. So I used a lot of anatomy references, as you can probably tell through various bits, and this is a somewhat flayed, skinned cadaver. We've got a teacher here pointing to a part of the breast muscle here, and the original image had students in the corner over here and some in the foreground who he is given a lesson to, so that's where I've taken this from. I think he is a bit too wide. He could have been more narrow, then that would have fit the figure more comfortably. I think, yeah, he looks a bit too wide relative to, say, this skinnier cadaver. I think it's mainly the coat. Could have brought it in more, which would have helped shape him a bit more. Yeah, this it could also be the head. Maybe the head needed to be a bit bigger to help it be a bit more proportional, but small things that could have changed, but there we go. Then vacant. So the idea that I had was a figure looking away, they're vacant in expression. This was based off a Francis Bacon triptych, or part of a triptych, so you can kind of recognize from the ribs and the flowing cape. I've got them looking into a mirror window, and their reflection is not defined, so kind of vacant. So that's sort of the idea that I had with that one. And you can see where the ink's kind of bled through. That's the issue with pro markers, they bleed out, especially if you overwork them. So I think I overworked it a little bit, or I was too vigorous trying to cover the entire space here. And then the final one is award. So I took a not so traditional sense of award, where you'd expect like a trophy. I did an example of my phone and my feed from Instagram of all the latest sketches that would have made up the grid sequence. And the idea is that when I can look through my feed, played, specifically through the Inktober section, I can feel a sense of achievement having finished the entire 31 sketches. That in itself is an award as a personal set to me that I completed the challenge. It was quite fun trying to make miniature versions of previous sketches. Like this one I think is very successful. These ones are okay. Bit of a mess. The black background eats up into the spaceship. A lot of detail is lost. Fingerprint, annoyingly, right in the one blank main area of the entire sketch. I need to figure out how to not do that in future. But yeah, that's the sketches. Got some stats for anyone who's just curious, and I was curious doing this, so here we go. This is all based on the shorts on the YouTube side. So Inktober 2025. This is based on up to a count of the 8th of November, about 7-8 days after Inktober had finished, to allow any, I don't know, late time views to come in or whatever. But in total, across all 31 shorts, got 19,431 views, which is insane. Just wild. I don't know how the short system works. I don't know if the shorts were good or if I just chose the right song. I don't understand, but yeah, I'm very thankful. It's just insane. And then collectively got 289 likes again. Insane. Just wild. Comments, there was 12 unique, so specifically 12 YouTube short viewers commenting, and then it's 19 total from what I replied to most of them. Otherwise it's 12 unique ones. Through this whole process I got 16 extra subs. That's pretty much nearly doubled my channel, so thank you all of you new subscribers. If you're one of them watching, thank you very much. And then 5 shares as well, so again thank you for whoever shared if you are watching. But yeah, that's the stats. Thought I'd share those with you and myself. It's hard to imagine what, I don't know how I would phrase it, but it's just wild to think that I did this challenge and then that's the result, and all of these sketches, not you though, all these sketches are what have come from it. Even though the prompts weren't the most inspiring for me, I did struggle with a lot of them, but I'm glad I did it. Look at all of these, this is so cool. And yeah, it was just an excuse to do a bit more body horror in a sense, or use these pro markers, which I do love, hadn't used them for a while, so I got to use them again. And yeah, I believe that's everything. I don't want to make this too long for you. Try and turn this around quickly as well. Thank you for watching all the way up to here, and thank you for viewing any of the shorts, which is now in a set playlist. So if you've missed any, or you want to look at any specific ones, you can have a look there, find the ones that you're interested in looking at to see how these were created. Again, thank you everyone that watched all of them, gave it a view, a like, comment, whatever. Just thank you. It really means a lot. I was really taken aback by how widespread some of them got. I'd never hit over 1,000 views on a short before, and then in this process I got 5 or 6 total that reached over 1,000, which is amazing. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Thank you. Supported by Fluff.